My name's Herman. I was born in Vienna, Austria on October 27th, 1929. Sitting here today, I'm 84 years old. I was born to Martha and Heinrich Herman, only child. We lived in Austria, middle class Austria. My grandfather and father owned a fabric business in the 2nd District. We lived in the 9th Bezirk, fair amount of Jews. 2nd District had most of the Jews. The major mode of transportation was walking and trolley cars. My uncle was a traveling salesman and was one of the few people that had an automobile. It was a treat to go to my uncle's on a Sunday for a drive. And then we went to the amusement park. The fabric business was in the 2nd District, and that's how we made our living. To give you a little comparison, middle class Austria, most people in Vienna, by the way, lived in apartments. 4 apartments on a floor, 1 bathroom in the corner with no bathtubs. The children were bathed in these little tubs the mothers had in the sinks. And the parents went to the forerunner of health clubs called bathhouses, in which they bathed. Unlike Americans, they didn't bathe every day. They just bathed occasionally. I enjoyed my visits with my dad to the bathhouses. Life was good. We're able to worship as we pleased. So I go from age born to 6. Normal kid, mischievous, bad, very bad kid. 6 years old, you go to school. The school we went to was across the street from my house. Remarkably, boys and girls, Jews and non-Jews. After school, the boys went to the playground to play. The sport we played, you folks call soccer. We call it football, national sport of Austria. The Jews and the non-Jews got along as well as can be expected. There was anti-Semitism. About 1937, we began to hear rumblings that a dictator by the name of Adolf Hitler is coming to power in Germany. Adolf Hitler was born in Austria. While imprisoned, he wrote a book called Mein Kampf, in which he clearly indicated that he wants to rid Europe of all non-Aryans. The prototype Nazi is blonde hair and blue eyes. I had blonde hair, believe it or not, and blue eyes. Didn't matter though, I was a Jew. We began to talk about leaving here, getting out. The difficulty in coming to America was as follows. 1, America had a quota system. They only took so many people from so many countries. The country that was your determining point was a country where you were born. Having a father born in Poland and a mother in Germany, it was clearly destined that there's no way that these 2 people, if they get out, can come together because they're in different quotas. You had to have a man, or a family, excuse me, from America to be your sponsor. That is to say to the German government, excuse me, the American government, that the Herman family will not be a burden to this country when they come here. We will take care of them until they can get on their feet, called an affidavit. Well, our relatives who were here had just gotten here. They were too poor to sign affidavits. We got pretty desperate because we weren't going anywhere, and we kept hearing about the trouble that was going on in Germany about the Jews, that we went, not we, but Mother, and looked up names of people with the same last name, and through an interpreter wrote to them. in America to see if they would sponsor us. People don't believe that. When you get desperate, you do a lot of things because you see the horizon isn't going anywhere. My mother was very good at this foresight stuff. She almost made me believe into woman's intuition. Maybe just at the turn of the year, the Germans now began to drop leaflets from airplanes indicating that they're going to come and take over Austria. It was called an Anschluss, no fighting. In March, they came. The day they came till the day I left, you can take my word for it, every day was worse for Jews. About a week or two after the Germans took over, I went to school, like I did every other day. Now there was a line drawn down the center of the school and said on the wall, Jews over here, Aryans, blah, blah, over here. All the pictures that we previously had on the wall were gone. Only Adolf Hitler's picture appeared. The boys on the other side of the aisle, who were my soccer buddies, now had a swastika on their arm and began to harass and bully us all the time. Let me explain to you, when you live in a dictatorship and you're the persecuted party, you don't have one single right. Nothing. They control the press. They control the radio. They open your mail. If they don't want you to get it, you don't get it. They control the streets completely. They control your rations. And if they so want, which they weren't doing yet, if they didn't like the way you looked today, they could have shot you and got away with it. It didn't matter that you were just an innocent person. Came home after this harassment now, and now I knew I can't play anymore. So instead of playing, I got used to running, because they would harass us and throw stones and stuff like that. I asked my father a simple question. What did I do? And he says, nothing. You were born Jewish. I said, I didn't know that was bad. He said, well, it isn't, but it is here. What are you going to tell a 9-year-old child? He said, you're Jewish, and that's the way it is. During the course of these events, as each day progressed, worse and worse, rationing got worse, bullying on the streets got worse. It was like a jail without bars, because you're always afraid that the stormtroopers with their dogs and rifles would do something. It was just, you can't imagine. You can't imagine. And I had it easy compared to what people had later. There was announced in the press that there will be kinder transports to Great Britain. Kinder is the German word for child. History tells us that 10,000 children were rescued to Great Britain during the course of the summer into the fall. I said, I'm not going to Great Britain. We're all trying to come to America, and I don't want to go to Great Britain. Now, if you know what happened, that could have been fatal. There was no guarantee I was coming to America. Well, the fall comes. School begins again, and now there's a new edict. No Jewish children can go to neighborhood schools any longer. They must go to a school in the central part of Vienna. For us, it was about a 2-mile walk. First day of school, my mother's female intuition strikes again. She says to my dad, you are not taking him. Smart move, Mom. Every father who took his kid to school that day never came home again. They were taken off the streets and put into concentration camps. Sure enough, harassment continues and things get worse. November, I think it's 8th and 9th or 9th and 10th. It's called Kristallnacht, happened. The night of the broken glass, where every Jewish business in Austria and Germany was destroyed. All the synagogues except one and the Jewish books and Torahs were burned in bonfires in the streets with stormtroopers dancing around with guns, bayonets, and dogs. Can you imagine? Here I am, having just turned 9 years old. From my window in the apartment, I see all this going on. Something I probably will never forget. There were also 100 Jews killed, 30,000 arrested. After that, the Germans pulled something like this, folks. It's called raids. They come in your house or apartment. They force you to lie on the floor. And they rob your stuff. When I say stuff, I don't mean your day-to-day stuff, but antiques, money, jewelry. And if your father is home, they take him too. We tried to figure out between these districts where we lived when they were coming, because they didn't come all at once. And we were pretty fortunate because the first 2 times they came to our house, my father wasn't home. The third times, we didn't have much left to take. If anything, they came, but my father was home. So we tried a little ingenuity. We stuck them on top of the closet, on the you know, where there's a bar, usually a shelf on the closet, and put blankets in there. Hopefully they wouldn't go in there and stab in there. Well, they came in, there was nothing, so they left. So Dad was still home. A little bit further down the road, my father and my grandparents, born in Poland, were able to get passports to get out of Austria. When you leave here, you got to get in over here. And the get in part was the problem. Nobody would let us in. They got passports and sailed to Cuba, destination Havana. The figuring was maybe if we live in Cuba, we could get here later. It's close. Cuba wouldn't let them in, even with the proper papers. So they were sailing on the ocean for 2 or 3, we don't even know, because remember, there's no communication. Finally, after 3 months or so, they landed in France as displaced persons and were put in a work camp in La Roche in France. Rather, my father was. The grandparents, I think they were too old to do this kind of work. Late April, early May 1939, there's announced in the press there will be a kinder transport to the United States of America. The very first one. Well, we made sure we got down there fast. What we found out was they can only take 50 children, 25 girls and 25 boys aged age 6 to 12. The trip was sponsored and paid for by a Philadelphia fraternal organization called Brith Shalom. They raised about $150,000, which in today's value would be well over $1 million, to rescue these children. They sent to Vienna a Philadelphia lawyer by the name of Gilbert Krause. They also sent a pediatrician with them who happened to speak both languages. They gave me a physical exam. They looked at my report cards. They gave us Rorschach tests. They sent us home. May 10th, 1939, a day that lives in my infamy. My mother got a letter that your son has been chosen for this journey to the United States. Remember the odds of me being picked for 25 slots. We were told to go to the Vienna train station, May 22nd, with 2 suitcases, ready to roll to Berlin. The train station was filled with stormtroopers when we got there. And I told my mother, Mom, I don't think they're going to let us go. Then they made an announcement. No parent on the platform may wave goodbye to their child. It's too close to Heil, Sieg Heil. Nor may they cry. If you're caught, you will be arrested. Off we go to Berlin, and they put us up in a gym. Unbeknownst to the children, but now we know, that the Krauses did not have the 50 passports that were needed to come as yet, and was supposed to sail in a few days. Now, they did have all the affidavits. Mrs. Kraus, before they undertook this, went to people in the Philadelphia Jewish community and outside of it to secure affidavits that they would take the children in. But to make sure, the Krauses agreed that if no one takes them, they will take all 50. What a commitment. Of course, we're 9 years old. We don't know. All we want to know is where we're going to eat next, because we hadn't eaten so good lately. We sailed from Hamburg on the USS President Harding. The ship had 3 classes, third, second, and first, like most people. The Krauses were in first class, and children were in third class. They had other passengers, Jews and non-Jews. Can you imagine that you are alone on this ship, without your mother or father, living by yourself, doing whatever you want? You're having a blast. The biggest adventure on the trip was eating. We're on an English-speaking ship and don't read English or speak English, and get these menus, and we have to order for ourselves. It goes 3 times a day, on all 3 meals. Food gets sent back constantly, because none of us want to eat the spinaches or the asparagus or the string beans. We want to eat roast beef and potatoes and bread and butter. We have English lessons twice a day with the Krauses. We arrive in New York Harbor on June 2nd. What a thrill to be in America. Now you can imagine, if you listened, how lucky I was to even get here, right? Bris Shalom has a summer camp in Collegeville, Pennsylvania. And we're there for the summer, learning English. God bless America, Star Spangled Banner, pledge allegiance to the flag. One day they bring out a stick and a ball. We decide, this stupid game, we don't want to play this. Then we have another meeting and we decide we're going to do everything they ask us, because we want to be just like Americans. So we learn to play baseball. We learned to play basketball. I took to that game. I was good at that game. We want to be just like the Americans. We don't want to be different. We're trying to adjust. Some go to foster homes. The people who signed affidavits came and took them. Some go to relatives, and I'm not sure. I don't think any parent had already come. So we load up in a car. We get driven. We get driven to Allentown, Pennsylvania. Mrs. Leonard and Mr. Leonard are super rich people. They live in a 10-bedroom mansion with a maid and a butler. And this 9-year-old kid coming out of Austria is going to live there. How lucky can you get? And I guess in Allentown they must have never seen a refugee kid, because it was like a big deal. The mayor came out to the school, and the principal, they had all kinds of meetings, the newspaper. So they decided to stick us in 3rd grade. He was supposed to be in 5th grade because of the language problem. But we were the best math students in 3rd grade. And I don't know what, Julius left after about 6 months. His mother came. I was still there, and My aunt and my cousin, in the meantime, 2 or 3 months later, booked passage to come to America. Their quota had come up and they had an affidavit. They sailed, folks, on the same ship. They go to Brooklyn, where we have all the relatives. So for Jewish people of that era, when you went to Brooklyn, you didn't need to speak English, because nobody spoke English. So one Sunday, the relatives came to Allentown from Brooklyn. We had a nice little hug with my aunt and cousin, and she said to me, "You know, I can't take you. I don't have enough for ourselves." She wasn't obligated to take me. In other words, if my mother hadn't come, she could have, but she wasn't obligated. So now I get brought up to date. She tells me where everybody is, that Mom's the only one left. Even my mother, a few months later, goes to Genova, Italy, gets on an Italian liner to come to America, comes to Allentown, Pennsylvania, can run a sewing machine, can't speak English. In Allentown, you got to speak English. She comes to the Leonards. I want you to understand something. What great power this 9-year-old kid had. Because between Mrs. Leonard and Mrs. Herman and me, I was the only bilingual person. So I interpreted for the adults. And I can rest assured that if Mrs. Leonard said that I was bad, which I was sometimes, my mother never heard it. Somehow escaped the translation. They agree between us, let me finish school, and then somehow we have to leave. I mean, the Leonards are no longer obligated. And when school ended, I moved in with my mother. Well, we were poor, very poor, about as poor as you can be. I'll fill you in on the rest of my family. Even my father, in early 1940, before the Germans invaded France, got out of France, came to America, came to Allentown, and we settled in a small apartment. Out of this family of 8, 6 survived. That's a high percentage for that era, because most families, very few, if any, survived. I graduated Allentown High in 1947. After Penn State, I served 3 years in the United States military. I met and married Roz. We've been together for 61 years. How she could put up with me for 61 years, I don't know. Roz and I have 3 daughters. Most part of my life I spent as a chief financial officer in area corporations, not all in one. I retired in 1996. I set up a consulting tax practice, which I did up to this year. I volunteer in many organizations. I'm on the board of the Holocaust Museum, of the Klein Branch, of the synagogue. So I'm proud of the grandchildren, what they've accomplished, because if nothing else, I preach to them that education comes first. Because if you don't get educated, you're not going to do too well in this country in the future, because things are tougher now than they were. Still good here, but it's a lot tougher. A lot tougher.